Hello to all my friends in Marketing Companion Land. What a treat we have today. We have with us Carla Johnson, who has been my friend for many, many, many years. Um, we had an upset in the schedule. Matthew Sweezy was MIA. He's probably out skiing somewhere. So Carla has been a trooper and is helping me out at the last minute here. Carla, you probably have heard of Carla before if you're in the marketing world. She is a well-known, very accomplished speaker and educator, consultant. She's the author of a couple books, including one of my favorites, Rethink Innovation, which came out a couple years ago. And so, like as you might imagine, sort of some connections between innovation, her passion for innovation, and some of the things I've written about in Audacious, and we're going to explore that today. Now, I know myself, and I'm going to get immersed in this conversation and forget to mention our sponsor, which is Brevo. Brevo is an amazing platform. It's an all-in-one CRM solution with some very kind of human-driven ideas around AI and automation, and it's so easy to use. We've had hundreds of people that listen to the Marketing Companion try it and love it. They've told me so, and you've got nothing to lose because you can try it for free. Go to brevo.com/marketing companion. You can see a place there. You can try it for free. If you do decide to sign up, be sure to use the code companion to get 50% off of your contract. And now on to the fun stuff with Carla. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. I live in Denver too. I actually didn't realize that's where Matthew lives. So
Yeah,
I probably should be out skiing today, but instead
yeah,
I've been emailing you since like early this morning.
I
And
know.
that's how you and I ended up on the podcast today
My
instead of you and Matthew.
my email was help, help. And here's Carla. So
Uh,
this was great because uh it's just going to be fun for me to have this conversation. And so yeah, we were like just getting, catching up before the podcast, and we already were starting our passions were starting to fly. I said, "Wait, wait, wait. This needs to be on the show." So we talked about this theme of a crisis of imagination. So, what does that mean to you in context of today's modern marketing world?
for me, I think a crisis of imagination is a result of being told so many times that marketers just don't feel it's worth the effort to try anymore.
Mm,
And you and I were starting to talk about that a little bit when you said, hold on, we need to get this on the podcast." But hearing, I think, if you're an agency person, hearing no from the client. If you're a team member, it's hearing no from your peers, your team, your boss,
mhm.
legal, brand. We hear no so much, and I think sometimes we forget that unless we hear no, we're not pushing the edge. And if
Yeah,
all we ever heard were yeses, it means we're so far inside everybody's comfort zone that it's actually turned it into the danger zone, which
yeah.
which is what that crisis of imagination is. And I think that there to be a modern marketer, you have to be incredibly smart to be a marketer today.
Mhm.
And even
My
smart.
the listeners of this show, you just became their favorite
Oh.
podcast guest of
Because
all
the
time.
marketers who aren't smart now work in like some other part of the company.
You're
They're not working
validating
like,
them. They're
yeah,
probably
yeah,
working
yeah.
in accounting or customer service
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or legal. There
or
you go.
legal.
Yeah. And so to get the work done, it's hard to carve out time to be imaginative
Mm,
and to be creative
such a
and
good
to
point.
do these
Yeah.
things. The reality is we have to get the work done.
Yeah, it's such a good, well, I mean, all of a sudden my like wheels are turning with all kind of ideas. But one of the questions I get a lot is how are you so prolific and turn out good blog posts and podcasts, and you just seem to be this font of ideas. And I really don't think I am more creative than any other person, but I am disciplined. And you mentioned this idea about the time and getting things done. And part of so in my classes I talk about four creative disciplines. One is to be aware of the ideas that are bombarding you all the time, right? I mean, you're always people today, they're always consuming content every spare moment of the day. So
Yeah.
you're always getting ideas. Number two, write those ideas down. So be aware, look at the world as a source of story ideas. Then when you see one, write it down right away, just on a piece of paper or on your smartphone or wherever. And three, schedule time to think or create. If this is really a priority for you, make it a priority. Just like it would be a priority to work out or go
Yep.
on a date or whatever. All right. And then the fourth part, which kind of gets to your idea, is this has to be a time where you really can focus. You're not distracted by kids yelling at you or phones yelling at you or anything yelling at you. You have to, you can't unleash that creativity unless you're relaxed. So it's this idea of not having a blank slate. You capture the ideas, you're aware of the ideas, you capture the ideas, you schedule time to process the ideas, and you relax as you're doing it. And I think that's something anybody can do. Truly, I do.
I 100%, 100%. And you and I started our careers during the time when there was such a thing called a swipe file. Do you still?
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I still have analog swipe files. We have digital ones too. So
Mhm.
a swipe file, for anyone listening who isn't familiar, is when you come across something like in a magazine or a newspaper or whatever it is, like you tear it out, you swipe it out of the magazine, and then you put it into a physical file,
Mhm.
and then later, when you need some inspiration, something to
Mhm.
start the creative juices going, you go back and you flip through that file.
Or
So,
some people I've heard, this is a theory, they just lay it on the floor,
oh, well,
all their ideas.
yes,
Some people,
I could see that I would need a significantly larger home, like not just office, but home,
yeah,
because I was thinking of
yeah,
this. I've been working on this keynote that I give the Muse in the Machine about how AI can be our creative partner, not just a
yeah,
tactical and efficiency tool.
yeah,
And the metaphor that I used to explain it came from something I wrote down from an offhand conversation 17 years ago.
I love that.
17. And so
I
I am
love
like,
that.
I have always been a writer. I've always, I mean,
Yeah,
just whatever it was. I mean, I probably
mhm,
journaled since I was 11 or whatever, but
yeah,
I write notes and I never know when they're going to come back. And I
yeah,
do revisit them. And the fact that it's called new puppy syndrome. It's how we get excited and then deflated about a new puppy. And that happens in our world with a lot of new things that can be introduced. But had I not taken 7 seconds to jot that down in a notebook 17 years ago,
yeah.
you know, that little spark that helped take this whole story and metaphor down the road wouldn't be there. And so it doesn't have to take as much time as people think it does.
What do you use as your swipe file now? Is it something like Evernote or like is it
I
something
use Pocket.
searchable?
Yeah, and so I have both, like I still literally have physical things that I use
Yeah,
because I'm so tactile, not, I guess
tactile.
tactile to be tactical.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm so like I want to see it because sometimes it's the feel of the paper, or it's a 3D thing, or like a
yeah.
memento of a time that that felt creative, or whatever. And then I use Pocket. I keep a lot of things in Pocket. So
Okay.
if it's web pages or things like that, I'll structure things in Notion. Um, I'm very all over the place. I'm very right brained, and because of that, I have to put a lot of systems in place so I can actually find the things when I need
Yeah,
to go find the things. Yeah.
yeah. That's my challenge. The good news about me is um like sometimes I have a very poor memory, but I have a really great memory about like trivia, about like little quirky things that happen to me. And so I mean, almost every book I write has stories from 20 years ago. or, it's just like, wow, wait a minute. There was this thing that happened to me. That would absolutely prove this point, So, yeah, so there is that. So what are some of the obstacles you see out in the world? We talked about one of them is sort of having the time, or maybe, the breathing space to be creative, but you work with a lot of different types of companies, and now you're speaking about innovation and
Mhm.
consulting about innovation. What are some of the other obstacles you're seeing out there in terms of a crisis of imagination?
I'm gonna give you a couple. One is we adult too much.
We
You know,
adult too much.
we
Huh.
adult too much,
Yeah, interesting. Tell me
back to
more.
we have to get things done. So there was a research project that was done by some professors at it was like North Dakota State University, I think it
Uh,
was. I know it was from researchers at one of the universities in North Dakota. So I apologize if that wasn't the right one. But
mm,
what they did is they brought two groups of people together, and I think roughly there were about 100 people total. And in one group, they said, you unexpectedly get today off. What are you going to do with your day? And this group said things like, I'm going to catch up on my email. I'm going to get that freaking huge load of laundry done. I'm going to go get the
mm.
oil change in my car and yada, yada, yada.
Oh,
Like
did you
productivity stuff.
did you use this example in your book?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I did.
I knew it was familiar. Yeah.
Yep. And the other group, they said, you unexpectedly have the day off of work today. What are you going to do? Oh, and by the way, pretend you're seven. And
Mm,
all of a
mm,
sudden it's like, I'm going to ride my bike. I'm going to do like cartwheel the football field. I'm going to eat ice cream for every single meal. I'm going to go see my grandma.
yeah,
And so it's that mindset shift also about the seriousness of the
yeah.
work that we do. And I think also like the self-perception of how we're supposed to show up. And so
Mm,
when I do workshops with groups on creativity, one of the exercises that I take them through when we've gone through the process of creative thinking and we come back to share the ideas,
yeah.
the first thing I have people do is we start with the worst first, because there's this feeling that we have to get it right. And that
Mm,
feeling of needing, of assuming there's one or two right answers or right ideas kills
mhm.
all the leeway and the like brain connections of what could be, of the possibility of that 7-year-old thinker. And
Yeah.
so when we start out and we say, and I say, all right, you get a prize if you have the absolute worst idea. Well, then people are totally willing to share their idea and raise their hand, because and that gets people laughing,
Hmm.
and then that laughter creates, good chemical release in your brain, and then you relax, and then you're not so judgy, and that shifts you out of that adulting, being too adult, into that childlike sense of fun and wonder and possibility.
Well, there's really a lot to unpack from your observation. And uh, the first thing is, obviously there are going to be a lot of parallels between your experience in this world and my experience, like writing the audacious book about, how do we transcend this pandemic of dull that is marketing today. And one common theme throughout I got to speak to some of the greatest creative thought leaders in the world, and this idea of being childlike was everywhere. And
Mhm.
it's a little scary to me, honestly. Um, like they literally they say a big key to creativity is play.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of exercises that have you play. I don't know how well I would do in that environment. And here's the other thing that just kind of hit me like a thunderbolt. I'm gonna be vulnerable here for a minute. So there's something has happened to me and my creativity. If you look at the early days of my blog, this would have been 2009, 2010, 2011. Like I was like, nobody has heard of me. I'm doing this on a whim. I'm just trying it out. Um, let's just be crazy. And I wrote like wacky stuff, crazy stuff. Uh, y- y- just off the wall, and a lot of it was really funny. And I realized a couple of years ago, I do none of that anymore.
Ah,
None of that. And I'm thinking, am I less funny? Am I less wacky? And you just said something that made me think, what do people expect of you?
yeah,
So, I mean, today, the people who read my blog are the ones who are going to hire me. These are the people that are going to hire me to consult or hire me to speak, or maybe they'll buy my books. And I also today, and it's sort of weird to think about this, but um, people like look up to me in a
yeah, they
certain
really
way,
do.
you
Absolutely.
know, and I'm blessed by that, by the way. I mean, I'm truly fortunate and blessed to be in a position where I can say things and have an impact on people, and I can set a positive example. That's important to me, and I take it seriously. I want to show the world that you can be kind, you can lift people up, that you don't have to be toxic, and a
Yeah.
sales bro kind of person to have an impact on the world. And when you said that, it kind of like connected the dots for me, like, maybe that could be it.
Maybe that's your next blog post. Do
So,
you feel like, I mean, because I
yeah,
find you to
you
be,
know what? I think,
yeah.
you know what? Now look what I'm going to do. See,
Are you gonna put that in your
I'm
spot?
writing it down. This
There
is
you
my
go.
little notebook of ideas.
Yeah.
And when I have an idea, it's going to be a blog
I
post.
do that with my blog topics.
I
Yeah.
have I start with a star. See, I write and see, I'm showing this on the video, and this is a podcast. No one can see it, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write it down right now. I'm going to put not funny anymore.
I think that might be your perception. I think you're funnier
And
than maybe you're giving yourself credit for. But do you think part of this, of at least your feeling of this shift, can be, I mean, I find you to be very humble and very gracious and very generous.
mhm,
And do you feel that, like, the seriousness with which you take your position, and that when you say things, people pay attention and take action because of it, that you're more thoughtful, and perhaps some of the things you did or said earlier might feel a little reckless in a way, like a little too
yes,
offhand? Yeah.
yes. In fact,
Yeah.
it's like a lot of it is like embarrassingly stupid. And I can't, and I have to go back. If
I now I'm dying to go back to those
Well, what
early
I'm
years of
going
your
to
blog.
do is I'm going to write that blog post
Okay.
based and maybe what I'll do is I'll even make that part of I'll make that the blog post that accompanies the podcast. But I can't, like, some of it was like there was one there was one thing about like Barbie, like a Barbie being like a prostitute or something. I don't know. Because I just had nothing to lose,
Yeah.
and I would see something and like turn it upside down. So why does it have to be like, why does it have to be, why does it have to be like that? What if there was a hoe Barbie or something,
That's funny. I think there was at one point, or maybe it was a take on it, because
take on it.
the
Maybe
Zoe
that's what
Chance,
I
I
wrote
think, yeah,
about. I don't
maybe
know.
that was it. But you know what? I think this, like, we talk about how to be more human in an AI world. I mean, yet
Yeah.
again, you wrote the book on it, Mark. But I think that, like, for me, I feel like this is a huge opportunity for us as as people and marketers who want to be more creative. This is
Mhm.
where I see AI being an incredible tool, because we can have those conversations and go back and forth and kind of push, like, our
Mhm.
digital muse in
Yeah.
some of this thinking. And it doesn't,
Interesting.
like, not everybody wants to put that thinking out there, but I think it's really important for us to understand, as marketers, it is so important for us to push our thinking. And
Yeah.
we don't have to put it in the public space and put it, make it a risk for us or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because you're right. I mean, I don't know if how many people are thinking about AI that way. But so, for example, what I've done is like I'll write a blog post, I'll put it into like ChatGPT or Claude, and I'll say, give me the counter argument for this.
Oh, I've never done that. That's great.
Because, like, make me aware of another side I should be presenting here.
Yeah.
Is this right? Is this fair? So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So you're having that back and forth with
Yeah.
AI, and I could think we can do the same thing, like put our idea, like what are we finished and ready to present, and put it into AI and say, how could I take this another step? Like if this was, think of a brand or a person who is really, really creative. I mean, our friends, Jay Acunzo, Doug Kessler, we were just talking about what a genius
Yeah.
he is before we started. Andrew Davis. Like if
Yeah.
if Andrew Davis or Doug Kessler had this idea, what are the next three or four thinking steps they would take with it? I mean, they're
Oh,
not always
yeah.
available to just call, or like who is that amazingly creative thinker that
Yeah.
and how can
Well,
that help push your idea?
so this is something that I've done to kind of push my thinking is so you have like I can't think of a specific example, but you have some problem, some creative problem, and you say, um, you are the greatest creative consultant in the world. You are inspired by Doug Kessler, Andrew Davis, and Jay Kunzo. And with this knowledge and with this creative perspective, help me with this problem. Give me the best advice for
Yeah.
this problem. So you can have like your own consultant. And I've had mixed results
Mhm.
uh, with that sort of approach. But definitely, again, I think the idea here, getting back to this thing of a crisis of imagination, even if you don't think of yourself necessarily as a very creative person, now with AI, I really think you can be.
Yeah. AI has taught me to ask much better questions and actually more creative questions.
Oh,
That's for sure.
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so tell me about that a little bit more, because
And I think part of it, like you were talking about how you would put something in and say, um, you know, give me the perspective. I'm this creative person, and these are the people who inspire me. Like, give me an output, and you have mixed results. I find my results are worse when I have something that I directly want to apply it to within a time frame. And it doesn't mean like I'm trying to finish something within the next hour. But if I'm just playing with it on a topic that I love, like one of the things now I'm really looking at is what are the things we need to teach people to be more curious, but not just like random curiosity, but curiosity in a way that can come back and be directly applied to their work. So
Mm-hmm.
as I work on that, when I have no agenda, nothing in mind that I'm going to apply it to or use it for, I find that I become much more the answers I get from AI are much more helpful. And I'm
Yeah,
wondering if it's because subconsciously I have nothing to lose in those situations. And when
for
I am
sure.
looking for an answer for something I'm directly trying to apply it to,
Yeah,
there's risks or something like
for
that.
sure.
And I think about it like a little bit of a neuroscience part. Like as marketers, when we're under stress,
Hmm.
our brain is in that beta mode, like that fight or flight. And so our way of thinking narrows, but when you're a kid and you're playing, you're in that alpha state and everything's possible. You're
Yeah,
more
because there are
open-minded.
no rules. Yeah.
Yeah, that there are no rules. And so I think just the nature, and this is where I say like the reality is we have work, we have to get out the door. But I think if we can consciously start to say to ourselves, okay,
Mhm.
I can spend 15 minutes being more creative right now. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be this huge cumbersome effort. It can just be what would a 7-year-old do to
Yeah.
be to do something fun in the next 15 minutes? And I guarantee you'll come up with things.
So if you take AI away out of the
Uh-huh.
picture, which is like sort of like a whole new world, can people become more curious? Is that innate or is that something that's learned?
I believe it's innate and then it's unlearned, and it's
Ah,
unlearned because not being curious and, we're trained to think in logical, predictable, standardized, and measurable ways. And
yeah.
there's actually like you can see that happening once the Industrial Revolution came along. Like
Mm,
before that, there was a lot of craftspeople and the very unique and creative things. And it was just kind of a natural thing when the Industrial Revolution came along. Well, then we needed to standardize things and we needed universities who could create those graduates. And it was a whole system of society. And so along with that, in order to create the standardization that helped with the efficiency, the people who succeeded were the people who thought less curiously. But the interesting dynamic here is like that's what's rewarded, rewarded, rewarded. And then boop, somebody pops out and
yeah,
they're amazingly creative and curious. Like they never were broken down. They were never
yeah,
a person who fully conformed. And now we're saying, my gosh, they're genius. I mean, they're
yeah.
audacious. How do they
Yeah.
do it? You know?
I mean, the curious really, they're the ones that drive the world. Yeah, because I have met a few adults in my life that literally just have no curiosity, and like I teach this personal branding class, and I mean it's just a joy to do because people are, they're so eager to learn and so eager to get it and maybe launch their careers in a new way. But and I have a good track record, but there was like one or two people I had in the class that just are they're it just like they're so non-curious about what's next and their potential, and it's just like, wow, I don't know if I can help these people, but maybe what I should do is send them to you.
Well, I'm always kind of curious. Like for people who are like that, did they have an experience where
Yeah,
curiosity was such a risk or
it was
such a
pounded out of them.
yeah, 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 like they
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's well, I think you're right. It's something that probably is innate, as a child. We're always picking something up and putting it in our mouth because we're
Yeah.
curious, right?
Yeah.
We're
Good thing
pounding
we
our
grow out of that stage though, cuz
yeah,
man, that'd be
yeah,
weird as adults.
yeah. But I've got a 2-year-old nephew, and
Oh.
I mean, oh geez, he's a, and I don't know if you know this, I'm going to be a grandfather pretty soon.
I didn't.
Yeah, yeah. So
Congratulations.
that's gonna be awesome.
Oh,
But my
amazing.
2-year-old son of a nephew, I mean, everything he picks up, you know, he puts it in his mouth, he bangs it, he pushes it, he twists it, and like he'll have like a TV remote. He'll try to use it as a smartphone, first of all.
Yes, my kids did that too. Yep,
And then,
talking through
then,
the
then he'll
TV.
want he'll want to taste it,
Yep.
and then he'll push all the buttons. And if that doesn't work, he'll push them even harder. And if that doesn't work, then he'll try to like rip them off or something. So it's just like every single thing he experiences is an adventure, which is just such a joy to watch.
I mean, and you look at kids like that, and it's amazing. But we do get to that age where we have to find a balance
Yeah,
between that. And I think what's happened is we've just swung the pendulum too far the other way. And like what's the adult metaphorical version of putting everything in our mouth and playing don't advise it if you live in New York City, absolutely do not do that. Um
you ride the subway.
yeah, do not put anything. Nope, just like zip it. Um but I think it's like mentally how do we sample things? And
Well,
it can be as simple as like do you always do the same thing on a Friday night? Like
yeah,
I know people who always on a Friday night
yeah,
they go out to dinner and they go to a movie. Like what is something that you could do differently once a week because it's
yeah.
interesting how fast that can
Well,
start to
like one of the creative people I talked to in the book said, your experiences are your creative currency.
yeah, absolutely. And I talk
So
about like in terms of if creativity is about
yeah,
connecting the dots,
yeah,
then your experiences are how you collect all those dots.
that's right. And so now Now, we already have um, maligned New York City. Now I'm going to say something nice about New York City. So,
I love New York City.
like, I was in New York City last spring, and oh my gosh, what an electric, exciting place to be, and just see, what do they have in their stores, and what are people doing, and that's collecting creative experiences, right? I mean, just seeing and experiencing. And what this agency actually did is they give their employees a monthly per diem to go do something different, to try
Oh,
something
fun.
crazy, so that they can collect the dots to, to be more creative. But it can just be as simple as, like you said, varying your routine. One of the reasons I think we have this crisis of imagination is because there's no serendipity anymore. Everything is fed to us. We have an algorithm that keeps us in our bubble on Facebook, keeps us on the bubble on the news feed, keeps us on our bubble on Netflix. It knows what we want. And if it delivers something other than what we want or expect, that's an algorithmic failure. But it also, I mean, serendipity is a luxury.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting opportunity for businesses, I think, is to like, how can we bring people out of their bubble to experience something else? To,
Hmm.
to break, how does a company break the algorithm with, like, maybe a live event, or even online, to say, hey, we're gonna shake your world for a couple minutes and give you a chance to experience something else. You know, we're gonna be the glitch in the matrix for 15 minutes.
Well, one of my favorite brands, and this is not a B2B brand, is Johnny Cupcakes. Do you know
Oh
Johnny?
yeah.
Yeah, the brand. So here's a guy. I mean, I started following him when he was selling T-shirts out of the back of his car. If you don't know
Uh,
Johnny Cupcakes, he has a bakery that you go into that does not sell any baked goods. All he sells is T-shirts
yeah,
with a cupcake and a skull and crossbones on it.
yeah.
So he started out, he would sell them out of the back of his car, and he would just put something on Twitter. Hey, I'll be in the alley behind the liquor store at 11 p.m. on tonight. Come get your T-shirts, and like, people would show up, and it was crazy. And then he opened the bakeries. I don't know how many he had. He's just now in the process of closing his last one in Boston, but the experience was insane. And he would do pop-up places, and then
Yeah.
these physical bakeries, and it's such a disruption. And I mean, it's funny. He had some reviews of upset customers. I remember the one of the woman who said, "This is not an actual bakery. Like, I could not get a single cupcake." I'm like, well, you know, can't help you there. But
Yeah.
that's so unconventional.
Right. It's like disrupting the story. And as you said, oh yeah, he's selling these, you know, in an alley behind the liquor store. I'm thinking, yeah, there he is in the alley behind the liquor store with Ho Barbie,
Yeah,
and and then they're
he
going
had
to
a good
take
thing
this.
going.
Then they're going to take the subway.
But somehow it all works out. It all works out. But it was just like he's just this master of creating the experience.
And this is one of the other things, sort of like the creative ideas, and I put Liquid Death in this category,
Yeah.
is to start with wrong. So
Mhm.
what he's doing is starting a bakery that sells T-shirts.
Exactly.
It's just wrong, right? And create a new water brand named Death. That's the first lesson I learned in marketing school. Never associate your product with death.
Well, do you
Uh,
know the story behind how they started Liquid Death?
oh yeah, there's a case study in the book, in my new book.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't read the whole thing. I gotta confess. But like another Denver start, that's where he got the idea. And so it's that he did a beautiful job of being curious
Mhm.
and observing all these little things that brought it together in the most beautiful and successful product.
Well, I think the most interesting thing about his approach is that he didn't necessarily have a passion for water. Water wasn't really his life. he had a passion for disruption. Like, where is an opportunity to have some fun? And if you think about almost every market we know of, it's just the same,
Yeah.
you know. And I got to I'm trying to get a hold of this presentation because it was just so brilliant. So one of the companies featured in my book is the Taboo Group out of Australia. I got to see them at South by Southwest, and they're in my book, and we've become friends, and we've collaborated on some things. And one of the things they showed in their presentation, which was absolutely hilarious, they had like this slide full of all these like automotive industry ads. They're all the same. Wine industry ads, they're all the same. Pizza industry ads, they're all the same. And you just think of something like pizza, which is about fun and joy, and everybody loves pizza, and especially young people just love pizza. What's the most audacious thing with pizza? Nobody out pizzas the hut. That's an ad in America. That's it. That's the
That's the
best
best
you
you can
got.
do.
That's the best you can do. I mean, if you think about it, almost every industry I can think of is ripe and ready for a liquid death.
Yeah, I mean, you think about 19 Crimes Wine in the wine industry.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
So it's a great story because it's an Australian wine company and they sell high-end wines, and what they saw is they had like more than the amount of waste that they would essentially pour down the drain every season because it didn't meet their
Ah,
quality of wine. And so they said,
mm,
well, if this is all about getting rid of something we don't want, that we don't think is good, like a problem, and
yeah,
we're an Australian company, our whole country was created
yeah.
because of another country wanting to get rid of something they
Get
didn't
rid
want,
of
that
us.
that
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
useful. And so they went back to Australia was created because of the 19 crimes that prisoners
Yeah.
were deported from. So that's where the
Ah,
name came, is
yeah,
19 crimes. And so they have wine labels that have a picture of one of the criminals, or original criminals.
yeah.
And then there's a QR code, and you get an app and you scan the wine label, and the wine label talks to you and tells you a story.
Oh, I have heard about
Yeah, I
that.
mean, now there's a Snoop Dogg label too. I don't know if there's a
Yeah,
Martha Stewart label version of it too,
yeah.
but that was incredibly innovative for the wine industry. And what they found is their sales actually spiked after holidays and get-togethers, where normally wine sales declined because people
Mhm,
would buy wine in
mhm.
preparation for the holidays, and then the
Yeah.
holidays were over and sales would decline. But with 19 crimes, what they found is people got together and they're like, hey, look at this bottle of wine, and you would
Oh,
use
yeah.
the app, and then so sales would go up. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, maybe this is a good way to kind of to wind down our conversation of, to think about, um, there is this massive opportunity. And I think we've talked a lot about the characteristics of this crisis of imagination, but part of it is also courage. I
yeah.
think there's a lot of people out there that want to be a little crazy, that want to take some risks. And maybe it's time to like challenge the culture in that, look, with AI, the risk of trying something, experimenting something, pilot it, like the cost of experimentation is going down, 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 down.
Absolutely.
Between AI and the internet, we don't have to spend all the money on prototyping and testing like we used to. And and I want to come back to this other really cool point that you made about the curious ones. They're the ones who own the world. They really are. So what would it be like if you were that person? You want to be that person. There are lots of people out there that they want to do more, but they've got this culture, this infrastructure that's rewarding boring, rewarding dull,
Yeah.
keeping this pandemic of dull in place. You don't want to dull has been normalized in the industry, right? Nobody out pizzas the hut.
You
Uh,
you said something super profound there, Mark, is that
yeah,
like the pandemic of dull, so
mm,
that's our expectation, and it's
yes,
like it's like our acceptance level. And I think that one of the ways that we can counter that, and I hear a lot of marketers say, like, my company would never go for that. Like, there's no way we could ever do that. And I believe the more you expose yourself as a marketer and the people you have to go to for approval to these audacious ideas, to
Mhm.
these audacious ways of thinking, to imagination and curiosity, and just show them what's being done elsewhere. It's kind of like exposure therapy.
Yeah.
Like the more you see it, the more familiar it becomes. But if you hide it and try never to rock the boat, back to your point about you have to have a little courage. Sometimes that courage starts with just having the conversation of what's being done successfully in marketing in general. Like who are those brands who are really shaking things up and being successful with it?
And if you are going to expose yourself, maybe it's an alley behind the liquor store.
Yeah. With
See?
Ho Barbie.
With Ho Barbie.
You're like
See?
that's a perfect wrap up,
I'm
Mark.
still funny. I
You're
still
still
got it,
you still
Carla.
got it.
I
You
still got
still
it.
got it. I can't wait for this. I can't wait for your blog post on this.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope you've had as much fun as I've had listening to Carla today and learning from Carla. Hey, Carla, because you're a special guest here, tell everybody where they can learn more about you and your work and your amazing latest book.
Absolutely. My website is Carla with the C, carlajohnson.co. There's no M. I say it's .co because I live in the great state of Colorado. But here is a fun thing for listeners to do. Go to my website, and on the front page, there's an innovation archetype assessment.
Ooh.
So it's 5 or 6 questions. Go in there and it will tell you what kind of a creative thinker that you are. So we tend to think of creative thinkers as, always the like provocative, pushing the status quo, but it can show up in a lot of different ways. So I encourage you to take that assessment and then drop it in the conversation underneath this video or in Mark's podcast, wherever you listen to this. And I'd love to see how you turn out.
Awesome. We all want to see how you turn out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.